I think when you find the humor in anything, I think, first of all, it's like the best anti-aging pill there is.
Mm.
It doesn't live in, you get to see the absurdity of this world we live in, and there's terrible things that happen. But if you're able to grab onto something that's ironic and funny and really human, I think if you can't laugh at yourself and the silly, stupid, egotistical things you do, it's a really sad life.
Life finds a way.
Life's not fair, is it?
Life moves pretty fast.
Life is a banquet.
Busy living.
What we doing live?
Way of life.
Life is pain.
Choose life and life you're proud. To live will be an awfully big adventure.
Welcome to the movie of your life with Richard Roeper. I want to bring in right away my co-host and producer, Jennifer Weigel.
Thank you, Rich. Today's guest is one of the funniest and most versatile performers of her generation. She's won an Emmy, a Golden Globe, and countless other honors for creating one of television's greatest comedy characters, Sylvester on Glee. She's unforgettable in Christopher Guest classics like Best in Show and A Mighty Wind. She's stolen scenes in films ranging from The 40-Year-Old Virgin to Julie and Julia. Starred on Broadway, hosted Weakest Link, and is also hosted some of television's biggest award shows like the Primetime Emmy Awards, and most recently, she's delighted audiences with her work on Only Murders in the Building. Jane, welcome to the show.
Oh, thank you so much. I'm really thrilled to be here.
I want to start off by mentioning that Jane and Kate Flannery, and I know Jen is like a huge fan of both, of Jane and Kate, you're doing The Trouble with Angels, and you can just go to janelynchofficial.com. Livermore, California, the Livermore Valley Center. I love
if it plays in Livermore.
You know, I love the names of venues, right? And then you're going to be at the Federal Way Performing Arts Center.
Oh, yes.
Which sounds a little bit like, you know, Blues Brothers when they're doing Jailhouse Rock, but I don't think it's Federal Way like that. And then the Bing Crosby Theater. That's pretty cool. And
in
then
Spokane,
on and on, all over the Great Northwest, it looks like you're doing Washington and Oregon.
We're the Pacific Northwest.
That's kind of cool. Because then you get to go for long, airy, rainy walks in the morning.
No, we don't.
No, you don't do that.
No, we don't. We get to jump in a van and go to the next gig. That's what we get to do.
Is that how you roll these days?
That is how we roll. We fly to the place, like the first gig, and then we hop in a van. And it's, you know, when people think, oh, Hollywood and no music tours, and I bet they're, you know, sniffing coke in the back of a, you know, a beautiful venue. It's not how it works for Kate Flannery and Jane Lynch. We're in bed by 10.
When do you come to Chicago?
We're not coming to Chicago in the near future, but we have been like 4 or 5 times in the last, even more than that, I'll bet.
Yeah.
But we don't have anything for the near future, but we hope to go back to Steppenwolf soon.
Yeah, I was going to say you were at Steppenwolf. That's such of course, a legendary venue, which is my segue now. What is it about Chicago, Jane? The comedy especially, it seems like, you know, 72.4% of all comedic icons come through Chicago one way or another.
I wouldn't be surprised if that statistic were true. There's something undefinable about it, but I do have some thoughts about it. But it seems that funny people, smart, funny people, find their way to Chicago, and I think it has to do with not all of the people that are from Chicago, comedy-wise, are actually born and raised in Chicago. But I think that there is a vibe in the city. We're very aware. We're politically aware. We love culture, and as opposed to New York City, we're smaller. We're like a small town in a big city, and there's a friendliness here. There's I feel like, I want to open a theater. Go ahead, do that. And then there are these rich people who will be on your board and say, yeah, go ahead, open a Shakespeare company in the middle of Chicago in the 1990s, which is what I was a part of. And we had people supporting us, and, we rented a space and, did Shakespeare plays for several years. There's just kind of a can do and then a support from the community.
You know, when Rich told me that Pope Leo was from Dalton, we said that now the two most famous people from Dalton are Jane Lynch and Pope Leo. So there you go.
Yeah, you went down a couple notches, I think.
I
think it's Pope Leo, Jane Lynch, and then quite a drop.
You go on the Wikipedia and they mention like somebody who played like 2 games with the Philadelphia Eagles in the 70s. the mayor who was allegedly stealing all of the money from Dalton. And then they say, the other thing with Jane, they just say, they say Jane Lynch. And then for me, they have to explain
who you are
I
and
am.
why.
Like, the other guy, that kind of thing. I get a lot of that. Which I have to tell. This is Jane. I think you'll appreciate this story. Back in the day, Roger told me this story when it was Siskel and Ebert, and Gene had just passed away, and Roger was in an airport, and a woman came up, and she was, "Oh my God, I'm so excited! I'm so excited! Oh my God!" And she said, "Which one are you?" And he said, "Well, presumably the one who's still walking on this earth, madam." But so again, as Jane can tell you, the recognition is everything, especially when when they tell you that they loved you on a show that you didn't do, probably. And
exactly.
I'm sure you get that
I loved you on Ozark. I get that a lot.
Do you?
Yes. Janet McTeer and I kind of crossed paths in recognition.
When you talk about Shakespeare, Jane, which Shakespeare role was your favorite? I think I played Queen Margaret from when she was 16 to 60 back in my Shakespeare days.
Okay, listen. I'm gonna join you on this because I can't say it was my favorite, but it was the most impactful because I was torn apart in the Chicago Reader. I played Queen Margaret in Richard III, and that part's usually cut because it's just complete bombast. And it said something like, at the end of Jane Lynch's scenes as Queen Margaret in Richard III, there was no scenery left on stage because I had gobbled it all up.
Well, she goes through an emotional roller coaster. If you'd knocked it all down, that would have made sense.
It should have been its own play, and it should have been a tragedy.
Exactly.
How do you deal with that, Jane, especially in this day and age? Because now everybody's a critic. They've got their own letterboxed, and they could just reach out on social media. How do you deal with that as a performer, as an actor, a singer, when you get the bad reviews, or when it's just people who are trolling? How do you deal with all that?
I don't read it, so I don't even know if it exists.
Smart.
Probably does, but it's so not in my consciousness. Is that how you say the consciousness? Yeah. I don't read comments, and even though for a while there, like in 2016, I was on Twitter. I mean, it was unhealthy, and I was very tribal and had like a group of people who I'd never met personally, but were kind of famous, and I was a part of this cool group. And for the first time in my life, I was in the cool group. I would read comments, and then around 2017, 2018, when you realize this is doing no good for the country. It's certainly no good for me. It's not good for my relationships. And it fell off for me. So I have not read, it's probably out there, but I haven't read anything. So I don't have to deal with it.
I think that's the smartest and healthiest thing to do, because there's just this tendency. And as you mentioned, listen, and I always say as a critic, I'm one of the few critics I know a little bit about being on the other side of things, because when you do a TV show, and I got ripped by Entertainment Weekly where the quote was, less time in the gym, more time in the screening room, pal. I got, and I wanted to say, what?
But that's kind of nice, though. It's saying we like your body.
That's it's not such a humble brag there, See,
that kind of, first of all, that was a humble brag, and I appreciate it, and I support it. But I like those kinds of things. I find something very positive in there. I forget the bad part.
Let's go back to Dalton a little bit if we can. If we can go back to Dalton. For folks who don't know, it's a south suburb of Chicago, Dalton, Illinois, and it is. Isn't it kind of amazing that now I have all great respect, and I think Pope Leo he's had some very, I think, enlightened statements he's made. And which is really great to see. But Jane, I kind of feel like the Pope should be from some small village with cobblestone streets, in Italy or Poland.
Like Padua. Something like that.
And it's like he's Bob from 147th and Sibley.
I know. Bob.
I don't want to diminish it, but it does kind of take a little of the magic away, I think.
It does, doesn't it? Yeah. And on Sibley Boulevard, he lived on Sibley. Sibley is like a kind of a small highway. You're living on Sibley Boulevard.
I think he was like a block away. I worked at Faves Shoes there back in the day. One of my first. What was your first job? Did you have those part-time jobs when we were growing up?
Yeah. Bonanza. I was a bus girl. Remember Bonanza? We were all working at Bonanza for a while. Rich and I went to high school together, by the way. We were in the same group of kind of this massive group of girls and boys, and a bunch of us worked at Bonanza.
And I should also state I was much older than you and still
Yeah,
am because
1 year.
well, we're just going to say much older because I was held back. I was like McConaughey in Dazed and
You were?
Confused. You'd see him. No, not really.
Yeah.
But let me ask you this, Jane, because I know you were doing stuff early on. You're like I went back to Thornridge for a piece. One of those going home on ABC here in Chicago.
saw it,
The
yeah.
neighborhood, which was so much fun, and going back to Thornridge was so interesting too. Because the cliches are true. Everything looks so much smaller.
Smaller, yeah.
But the crazy thing was I remembered my locker combination. Do you remember your locker combination?
5, 4, 21.
Isn't that weird? We all remember
Yeah.
that. I
Yeah.
don't, but I couldn't tell you a lot of other things from back then. But the locker, Jennifer Weigel, locker
Yes.
combination. Where you go? Evanston Township?
I did. Evanston Township High School, 23-6-30. I totally remember. Yeah. I
Incredible.
also remember my home landline, and back when
I
we
do
used
too.
to have to memorize phone numbers to
Mhm.
actually use them. Here we go in the Wayback
Yeah,
Machine.
remember Viking 9? Remember back in the
Yeah.
day when our exchange was 849 in Dalton or 841?
Yeah, I
And
was
you out for the
841.
first two
Yeah.
841, and the first two numbers were always a letter that could make a word. So the 8 was the V, and the 4 was the I. So it was Viking 9 or Viking 1.
Nice.
Mhm.
So you were doing all this stuff, Jane. When was there a moment when you thought, I actually want to try to do this for a living, where you really thought this is what I love, but I'm not just going to do this as some kind of, what was the moment? Do you remember?
There is a moment. It was kind of an out of body experience, to tell you the truth. My parents were doing port of call at St. Jude. Remember that?
Yes.
So port of call was St. Jude was our parish, and port of call was the moms and dads did theatrical shows in the school. So each classroom was a different port of call. So my parents were doing the Irish room, and then the bell would go off and the show would be over, and you'd go into the hall like switching classes, and you'd switch port of call. Everybody got loaded. It went on till about 3 in the morning. And I remember it was about 1 in the morning, and I was 12 years old. And that's late for a 12-year-old. So you're kind of out of your body anyway. And I was in the parking lot, and I was bringing something in for my mom, and they were in the middle of the next show was about to start. And I was standing in the parking lot of St. Jude, and I was like beside myself in like ecstasy, like bliss. And I connected that this is the happiest moment of my life, is being a part of this show. I wasn't in it. I was just helping, but I was there the whole time. And that was kind of when, I didn't logically make that connection, but I know that that's when my destiny swooped in and it was shown to me.
Were you ever behind the scenes with crew and doing all of those things on the
Mhm.
stage too, like stage managing? Did that ever appeal too? Or
I didn't do stage managing because I'm not organized enough for that. Those people are amazing, as you probably know, because in TV too, it's just But no, I did props. I helped with costumes. I did all of it for sure.
Recently, I mean, and I love everything you've done, Jane. I think you know that, but Only Murders in the Building is such a gift to all of us, and you're so spectacular. Uh, is there a moment? I mean, you've worked with everybody at this point. People get to say, "I got to work with Jane Lynch," but like when Steve Martin first hit, you were probably 14, maybe 12 or something like that when he was. So is there still
Let's
that
Get
moment?
Small.
Yeah, right. Let's Get Small, the concerts and all of that stuff. Is there ever a moment still to this day where you kind of just go, this is crazy. This is Steve
Yeah.
Martin.
Absolutely. It's surreal. I did grow up loving Steve Martin. I knew almost every breath of that album, Let's Get Small. And when I got the call 40 years later that, hey, do you want to play Steve Martin's stunt double? It's like, you've got to be kidding. Yes, of course I do. I had that with Steve Martin, and I also had that and continue to have it, even though I go out with her a lot now, which is Carol Burnett. She lives in my town, and we have dinner probably once a month. Jennifer and I, my wife and I, have dinner with her and Brian. And, I have to step outside of myself and go, oh my God. Look who I'm having dinner with.
So cool. And, it's remarkable, Jane, too, when you think of so many of these comedic legends who live to be 95, 99, 100. And I wonder sometimes it's because of their, the beauty and humor and the fact that, comedy has this, it could be rough, but it also has this gentleness and this embrace of life. But you also get to get a lot out. So maybe you're not internalizing things. I don't know. What do you
I think so too. I think when you find the humor in anything, I think, first of all, it's like the best anti-aging pill there is. It doesn't live in, you get to see the absurdity of this world we live in, and there's terrible things that happen. But if you're able to grab onto something that's ironic and funny and really human, I think if you can't laugh at yourself and the silly, stupid, egotistical things you do, it's a really sad life. And people who are funny, for the most part, we have our tortured comedians, but not so much anymore. If you can laugh at yourself, there's a love for yourself which extends. And I see this in Carol. She's the most gracious, funny, kind. She's had friends for, 70 years, and she's probably the last one standing too. But she is, and if you look at her show, it's the Carol Burnett show, but it was an ensemble of actors. Everybody got a chance to shine, and there was just, and I think, it's because of her. She set the tone, and that was the kind of comic person she was, which was very generous and very kind. And and I do think that, the ability to laugh, and she still cracks up. She cracks herself up. She laughs at things that I say, which makes me so happy. But I think when you're able to do that, I think it's a better life, and I think you're a better citizen.
So speaking of being comfortable and bringing the best out in your people, like she did with Harvey and Tim and these outtakes, one of the best things that social media can bring us are these outtakes that we didn't see that hit the cutting room floor, perhaps. Is there something, Jane, in your body of work, maybe it's Christopher Guest and any of the other people from all the folks you've worked with, that brought out the most humorous improver in you?
Oh, yeah. There was a period there when I had done, the Christopher Guest movies, and then the 40-Year-Old Virgin, Talladega Nights, and Role Models, and then Party Down. And it was kind of this unofficial comedy ensemble world. We all knew each other, not real close friends, but there was something about it. It was really a magical time. And you feel supported, and you're everything's funny. Your mind and kind. Not a mean one in there. Like, I remember at Talladega Nights improvising a scene, and the Will might say something, but then somebody, an actor who's not number one on the call sheet, will have a joke, and the best joke wins. It's like, no, we'll go with that one. And Will's like, absolutely. Nobody's, and Steve Carell was that way too. They're up at the top there above the title, and yet it's so generous and so kind, and it's, you're there for to make something together. And
I love that. And you mentioned Carol Burnett, as you mentioned, Jane. That's the thing. If it was Tim Conway's moment, nobody seemed happier about that than Carol Burnett. Like, this is your moment to shine. And I feel like, and I'm sure you've worked on some sets that haven't been absolutely, seashells and balloons and hugs and kisses. But I do feel like a lot of times you could see the joy. Every Chris Guest film, I love his movies. They have such a repeatability factor because you just love watching these people. But you just get the sense of the joy that you had making those films, that ensemble feeling. Is that accurate to say?
Yes, absolutely. And I think that in any film that shows up, that holds up, and television shows too, they hold up because of that. Because there's just a great equanimity, and there's so much joy going on. It should be joyful. And, I've been in some situations where it's not, and it always has to do with ego and fear and, stuff that ultimately just isn't funny. That's not gonna stick to your ribs in terms of comedic nutrition. You like that, Jen?
I love that.
Jen, love that. This is the movie of your life, and we'll be right back.
The Movie of Your Life podcast with Richard Roeper is brought to you by Wayfarer Theaters. Wayfarer Theaters has 2 locations, one in Highland Park, Illinois, and one in Payson, Utah. For all showtimes, go to wayfarertheaters.com. Not only do they show your blockbusters just around the block, but live events and even live comedy. Remember, wayfarertheaters.com, click on events to find all those special and unique opportunities near you. Welcome back to the Movie of Your Life with Richard Roeper. And Jane, as you mentioned, improv, a big part of your repertoire. So many things that you have done. I wonder if anyone quotes a line that maybe wasn't in the script back to you often. Is there something that you get out when you're out in the street shopping or going to dinner that wasn't a scripted line that has basically stood the test of time over all these years?
Yes. In Glee, the first, you think this is hard, try blah, blah, blah. The first one was written. And then I came up with like 10 more that we kind of sprinkled throughout the series. And my first one was, you think this is hard? Try waterboarding. That's hard.
And you, of course, I'm sure you have those moments too, where it's the last thing you want. You're in the bathroom and somebody comes up, or you're at a serious moment with your wife and you're having a conversation and somebody, and what do you do? And again, you got to handle it because that 30 seconds is going to be the story they tell about how they met you for those 30 seconds, right?
I try not to think about that. That's too much pressure, but it's true. I want people to walk away and say, that Jane Lynch is nice, but it doesn't always happen. I'm not like a mean person, but maybe it's not everything they thought it would be. Let me tell you a story. I love Bill Maher, and I hadn't met him. And we were both slated to do an event, one of those things that like a hotel where, you eat in your dressing room, and it's not even really a dressing room, but one of the women organizing it, I said, oh, Bill Maher's here. I love him. She said, you want to meet him? And I said, yeah. Well, she didn't ask Bill Maher if he wanted to be met. So, you know how he can be.
Yeah.
So
yes. He can be a prickly pear, as we used to say back in the day.
Yes. So I was kind of had this feeling because the reason I like him is because he's such a prickly pear. And I was like, oh God, I hope he's going to be all right with this. So we walk into, it's almost like the loading dock, and he's sitting there in his, his fancy suit, eating his not roast beef. He's a vegan, eating his carrots. And, they say, Bill, and he looks up and he looks at me and he goes, yeah. He goes, Jane, this is Jane Lynch. She wanted to meet you. And he said, well, you met me. And I said it's not everything I thought it would be. And then he laughed, and I left him to his vegan meal.
Yeah.
So so here I am telling it on a podcast, but I love him. I think he's great. I love his prickly pearness.
It's kind of like a good name drop for you. Clint Eastwood, who I've had the privilege of talking to a few times over the years, and he was just like you'd. This podcast would have been over in about 47 seconds. I'd be like, the brilliance of the letters of from Iwo Jima, where you told the other side of the story, and I just thanks. Yeah, and that's all you get. So thank you for giving us.
I kind of love that.
Yeah,
I kind of love that. Harrison Ford is that way too.
Yeah,
right. Yeah.
Yeah, you don't want you don't want to meet him and all of a sudden Clint Eastwood's like, "Do you want to see my impersonation of Nixon?" You don't want that from Clint Eastwood. Movie of your life questions for you, Jane.
Yeah.
What's the first movie you remember seeing in a theater that really struck you as an experience you still remember to this day?
Okay, there's 2, but I'm going to say the first one. I was very young. I think like 3 or 4. My mother took me to the Dalton Theater. Remember the Dalton show?
Sure.
Took me to the Dalton Theater and left the 2 kids at home. My dad stayed with the other 2 kids. My mom brought me to see Alfie.
Really?
Which is pretty adult.
Yeah.
Michael Caine?
Michael Caine, Alfie.
It seems to me, if they ain't got you one way, they got you another. So what's the answer? That's what I keep asking myself. What's it all about?
Yeah.
So I remember him looking at the camera and talking to the camera, and I just thought, I don't know what it was about. I know there was a naked lady in there, but so I saw Alfie with my mother. But the one I really remember, and I was probably a little older, was seeing at the Beverly Theater in Beverly in Chicago, which was a beautiful old theater that actually had the curtains, the big velvet curtains, seeing The Sound of Music.
Doe, a deer, a female deer, Ray, a drop of golden sun.
And so the score comes, the lights go down. It was an event. The score, you know, right before The Hills Are Alive, you hear the birds and they're slowly opening the curtains. And then all of a sudden it reveals Julie Andrews twirling around on the mountains or the hills of being alive. And I just remember, and I loved every breath of that movie. I now know every word of it. I know every breath of the movie. But it was a big, big moment.
It's interesting because we talk about the South Suburbs, the Dalton show, and I think that was like $1 show, Jane. It would be the second run,
Probably.
and that's why we would go there. But then there was also the Homewood show, and they would show like foreign films and kind of really cool documentaries. I remember my parents would go there. It was big date night on Saturday night, and they'd see Truffaut or something. And then the River Oaks in Calumet City, which was a beautiful theater, and that's where we saw, like, I remember seeing Grease there.
I do too. I saw Grease there too.
Yeah.
And the reissue or the issue or whatever you call it of The Sound of Music too. I would get there like 10 o'clock for the first screening and we would stay until the last screening.
It's very cool over the last few months that we've seen so many people going back to the theater, you know, to the movies to see movies. Now, Jen, why don't you jump in? I know you've got a question.
Okay. Well, is there an audition, Jane, that maybe you wanted but didn't get?
Yeah, I auditioned for League of Their Own, which they cast in Chicago.
Yeah.
And part of the audition was to play hardball, to play baseball. And Rich, you weren't in my neighborhood, so you don't know this, but I played hardball with the boys from like the age of 10 till I got to high school, every day in the summer, 5 days a week. And it was pretty good. And so I was really good in the audition. I was on fire. And then I did the baseball audition, and then I did the regular audition. And Penny Marshall said, "You know, you're very good, but you're probably not going to get this. Just want to let you know." And I said, "Oh, okay." And so I went home and I called my agent. I said, "Ask if you know, I can be an extra or background." And my agent said, "No, you don't want to do that. You don't want to like in Penny Marshall's eyes and in Hollywood's eyes, show that you'll do something less than you're really meant for." And I said, okay.
That was you know, that's good advice though. I think, you know, you want to you don't want to, you know, send the message out. Oh, I'll just be an extra.
I'll do anything.
You're an actor. You're an actor. Movie going experience. Do you have like a favorite spot where you always sit in the theater? And do you also have like a favorite go-to concession? Like what's your snack?
Yeah, I do. I like to sit on the aisle because I have long legs. And of course, and I don't think anybody likes to be too close. It's just too hard. I kind of like probably the last third on the aisle. And I like Raisinets and Goobers. So I would usually get a combination of that.
Is there a movie that people make fun of you for loving, Jane, that you have to watch all the way through?
I don't know if I get made fun of, but I love The Music Man.
I can deal with the troubled friends with a wave of my hand, this very hand. Please observe me if you will. I'm Professor Harold Hill, and I'm here to organize a River City Boys band.
I think it's one of the best movies ever made with some of the best character actors that Hollywood ever had to offer. Hermione Gingle, Tom Ford. Yeah. Buddy Hackett. And of course, Robert Preston and Shirley Jones and little Ronnie Howard. Yeah. It was just a delight. And I still try to watch it on the 4th of July. I was with my sister 2 summers ago and Julie and we Julie and her husband, John, and I watched The Sound of Music on the 4th of July and then went to the Hinsdale Parade the next day.
That is all American right there. That's Americana. And you know, I do think it's one of those movies too where people are quoting it. They might not know they're quoting The Music Man. You'll see this, you know, in news stories. We got trouble right here in River City, and I wonder if they know where that's coming from. But that's kind of awesome.
Right.
Here's another one for you, Jane. We're going to let you go in a couple of minutes, and we also should mention again, Jane Lynch, Kate Flannery. Just go to JaneLynchOfficial.com and you can get tickets. The Trouble with Angels. if you had the chance to visit a movie set while it was being made, while the film was being made, is there a film set that you would, any time in history that you would have loved to have been on?
So easy, because I've been fantasizing about it. Well, not so much now that I'm an old lady, but Desert Hearts.
Really?
In 1985.
Where'd you learn to kiss like that?
I don't know where that came from.
It was a film, it's kind of an iconic lesbian film, but it's really beautiful and well done. And Donna Deutsch was the director. And it took place in, not Las Vegas, but the other town. That's
Tahoe,
kind of
was
Western. Tahoe. Took place in Tahoe, and shot in Tahoe, and in the 50s. And it was these two women in this era, kind of the buttoned up 1950s who fall in love. And one of the girls is a ranch hand, and the other one is a woman coming in for a quickie divorce from New York, and she's an English teacher, of course.
Yeah, well, yeah.
She loses her glasses and her hair goes down.
Yeah.
But I just would love to. I mean, some of the love scenes are so beautiful, and just the kind of the community that they had. That's a thing about movies and television. If you can set the place and really define it, and really make it an appealing place, even for something that's got like hard subject matter, although this wasn't. This was kind of, it had its hard moments, but it was about two women falling in love. For me, that sticks with me. That's like with the Music Mans and River City had that, they were so successful in creating this little town in the turn of the 20th century. And it makes you want to go there. And so I wanted to be in Tahoe in 1985 and just be a part of that, be a part of that world and watch them shoot some of the love scenes because they were so beautiful.
Yeah, Helen
And some of the
Shaver
other stuff,
and
too.
Patrice Charbonneau, right?
Charbonneau,
Yes,
right.
who were just spectacular. In that.
They really were.
Yeah, Desert Hearts, for folks that haven't had a chance to see it. 1985, you were correct,
Right.
Jane, with your memory. Thank you so much, Jane Lynch. Thank you so much for joining us. We really appreciate
My
it.
pleasure. Thank you for having me. Good old friend.
Keep that in.
Don't forget to subscribe and share The Movie of Your Life with Richard Roeper, brought to you by Wayfarer Theaters.